Okay, well, I always follow that clock. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, but we're on the air.
Oh,
Should I go ahead and start? So welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. This Tuesday, October 4th in Laguna Woods. The meeting will now come to order. We have a quorum. And Director Skillman, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
My pleasure. Would you all please stand and join me in pledging allegiance to the flag of our great country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the next item, acknowledged in media, and then the next order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any objections to the agenda? So if there's no objections to the agenda is passed. The next item would be the approval of the minutes of September 6th, 2022 GRF Board Regular Open Meeting. Are there any changes? So if there's no changes, are there any objections? So if there are no objections, the minutes of September 6, 2022 GRF Board Regular Open Meeting is passed. The next would be the approval of the minutes of September 15th, 2022 GRF Board Agenda Prep Meeting. Are there any changes? So if there's no changes, are there any objections? No objections, and the September 15, 2022 GRF Board Agenda Prep Meeting is passed. So the next is the report of the chair. So the next meeting of the Corporate Members Board is October 31st. GRF will reference the bylaw that requires corporate member approval. I'm really sorry for any misunderstanding as to the purpose of that meeting and what destroys the integrity of the boards is emails that are sent to members and directors with false information. And what each of you can do is investigate to find out if that information is true. And then vote with your heart and mind. Building E houses our employees, and that building is a disaster. So the next item is open forum. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip you. The next item is the CEO report. Siobhan Foster.
thank you, President Carpenter, honorable members of the board. This morning I have 3 updates that I would like to share. First off, I wanted to start with the expanded hours at the Clubhouse One Fitness Center. The Clubhouse One Fitness Center now opens at 7 a.m. Monday through Friday. The closing hours remain the same. So the new schedule for Clubhouse One Fitness Center is as follows and is shown on the screen before you. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. On the next slide, you will see expanded hours also for the Community Center Fitness Center. Beginning this Saturday, October 8th, the Community Center Fitness Center will close at 2 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Opening hours remain the same. The new schedule for the Community Center Fitness Center is shown on the screen before you. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, it is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. The next item I want to share is the El Toro Tunnel cart path will be closed from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Tuesday, October 11th. This will facilitate tree crews working along the El Toro Tunnel cart path at the entrance and exit at buildings 235 and 2384. Again, the path will be closed from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Tuesday, October 11th. And finally, I was asked to address this morning Civil Code Section 4360 that pertains to the notice of rule changes. The code indicates that the board shall provide general notice of a proposed rule change at least 28 days before making the rule change. The notice shall include the text of the proposed rule change and the description of the purpose and effect of the proposed rule change. Notice is not required if the board determines an immediate rule change is necessary to address an imminent threat to public health and safety or an imminent risk of substantial economic loss to the association. Just as a refresher, an operating rule is a regulation adopted by the board that applies generally to the management and operation of the common interest development or the conduct and affairs of the association. And a rule change, by definition, is an adoption, amendment, or repeal of an operating rule by the board. And to recap, the notice of a rule change and the 28-day requirement apply to an operating rule that relates to one or more of the following: use of common area or an exclusive use common area, use of separate interest, including any aesthetic or architectural standards that govern alteration of a separate interest, member discipline, including any schedule of monetary penalties for violation of the governing documents and the procedure for imposition of penalties, and then any standard or delinquent assessment payment plans, any procedures adopted by the association for resolution of disputes, any procedure for reviewing and approving or disproving a physical change to a member's separate interest or the common area, and lastly, procedures for elections. And that concludes my update this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to recap, policies require 28 days and operating rules do not require 28 days. Right? Is that? I'm sorry. That's the rule that I go by.
Okay, well, I was reading
Yeah.
directly from the civil code and they refer to
Right,
operating rules.
Right, okay. Operating rules or an approval of a contract or something of that sort does not require a 28-day.
Madam Chair?
Yes? Yes.
I think that a further clarification is that people don't understand when we do a first reading of a motion, it's only a first reading. We are not voting on that motion. We are voting to move that motion for 28 days of input from our residents. And the second reading is where we actually vote to approve or disapprove that motion.
Right.
Too many people think because it's presented in the first reading that the vote is for or against, and it isn't. It's only for or against moving it forward to 28 days of resident input.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Reza? No? Okay, thank you. And, pardon? Yvonne, okay.
These hour changes, is that going to be posted in What's Up in the Village?
It was in this last Friday's edition.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you.
I didn't read it.
Okay, thank you. And Siobhan, are you done with your report? Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item is the open forum. 3 minutes per speaker. At this time, the members only may address the board of directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of this board of directors. The board reserves the right to limit total amount of time allotted for the open forum to 30 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum. Speakers may not give their time to other people, no audio or video recording by attendees, and no rude or threatening comments. Members can attend the meeting by joining Zoom. The number is 981-312-57242, or call 1-669-900-6833 or email meeting@vmsinc.org. Do we have any speakers today?
Yes, we do. So the first speaker will be Chris Collins.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chris Collins, 3306Q. This is an update on the work of the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village on behalf of residents experiencing temporary financial emergency. Neighbors are like umbrellas. In many ways, neighbors are like umbrellas on a rainy day, lending a helping hand during difficult times. National Good Neighbor Day was in September, and it gave us the chance to recognize and appreciate the important role of neighbors. Being a good neighbor can help build strong relationships, prevent social isolation, enrich our cultural experiences, and ensure help in emergencies. Being a good neighbor became particularly important during the pandemic, when feelings of isolation made reaching out to our neighbors more important than ever. Do you know your neighbor's name? When you chat with them, when was the last time? Getting to know your neighbors is the first step in building good neighbor relations. Perhaps you can drop off some cookies or home-baked goodies when a new neighbor moves near you. It's a wonderful way to get to know your neighbors, and you might want to offer to pick up groceries for an older neighbor or one without transportation. Donating to the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village, whose motto is Neighbors Helping Neighbors, is always a good way to build neighbors' relations. A foundation tribute donation to honor a neighbor's special event or to remember a neighbor who is no longer with us can celebrate the message of Good Neighbor Day. Started 25 years ago, the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village exemplifies the spirit of Good Neighbor Day. In the past 5 years, the foundation spent over $1.2 million in the village, with nearly 99% of that money raised in the village to help our neighbors when they experience hard times. So for more information about specific programs, help with foundation funds, please contact us at thefoundation@comline.com or 949-268-2246. Please also visit our website at thefoundationoflagunawoodsvillage.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Suzanne Frank.
Good morning, Suzanne Frank, 227B. Many of you may remember at the January 4th meeting, there was a motion introduced to remove the lifeguard at Pool 2. The first motion that was voted on was 4 in favor and 5 opposed. I got up to speak, and I told you that it was a very bad idea, and that even though I'm an excellent swimmer, there was a possibility that I could have had a heart attack at Pool 2 and nobody would be there to rescue me. 3 weeks ago at Pool 5, a resident had a heart attack at Pool 5. The lifeguard performed CPR as well as security. Unfortunately, that person she didn't recover. And then, I don't know if you know this, but also at Pool 4, a week later, a gentleman with Parkinson's disease was left alone in the hot tub, and he went under, and a resident had to rescue him, and then the lifeguard came over to save him. So I'm here today to thank the board members, of those of you that voted to get rid of that motion, and I think it passed 9-1. And I want to emphasize that I hope this issue never comes up again, because here you have 2 examples of where a lifeguard was needed at the pool. So lifeguards are needed at all of our pools when they are open. So thank you.
Thank you. No clapping. Thank you.
Next speaker is John Beckett.
Good morning, everyone. Many of our recreational facilities were shut down last year because of the pandemic. As a result, GRF collected more money than they could spend. Management is urging the boards to spend that surplus. However, the GRF trust compels you to return it. Section 7 of the trust says, Golden Range shall refund or credit any year-end surplus to the members of the mutuals, that is, the homeowners, after the end of each fiscal year. The fiscal year ended on December 31st, 2021, 9 months ago. But GRF still hasn't refunded the surplus or given us a credit. In the past, management would schedule a meeting of GRF's corporate members and ask the 27 mutual directors, shall GRF refund the surplus to your members, or shall GRF credit the surplus to their accounts? Unfortunately, management no longer schedules those meetings. This year has been particularly difficult for low-income seniors. Many of my neighbors are suffering from the effects of inflation. To those people, a $345 refund would be a godsend. For their sake, I am asking this board to do the right thing. Call a corporate members meeting and give back the surplus. Thank you.
Next speaker.
That is all for in-person speakers. We did have 3 residents who emailed in, so I'll read those emails right now.
Okay, thank you.
The first one is from Bill Walsh, Manor 3162C, and he said, folks, residents have asked me when SCE is planning to send the GRF MNC committee their final terms and conditions regarding the GRF applications for the Charge Ready 2 program. Can you give us an update? These same residents have also asked whom they can contact at VMS or the GRF board to get a copy of the financial analysis of the Charge Ready 2 program written by former United board members Steve Leonard and Carl Rendazzo. Please advise. The next email is from Joseph Siri, Manor 190A. They stated, Dear board members of the GRF decision-making committee, I urge you to install a number of EV chargers in Laguna Woods Village to raise our real estate values, improve our visibility to the wider public, and most importantly, to keep up with the state of California's express intent to sell only electric vehicles after 12 years from now. Installing EV chargers now will be less costly than waiting until a decade from now when demands will lead to increased costs. Foundations are among the very few entities that can afford to undertake renewable electrician to keep up with growing demands for plug-in hybrids and e-vehicles. The facility shown here, and I'll pass around the photos in a second, the facility shown here is in the Central Valley, California, where more than 10 charging stations for vehicles are connected to solar panels. The panels provide electricity to be sold to EV owners charging their vehicles and needed shade from the blistering heat of that region. You have the capacity to lead based on an already prevalent vision among industry leaders who have both vision and commitment to a healthier way to improve transportation. Our aging residents need healthier air to breathe and a means of having the mobility that we all crave in California. You are the leaders of Laguna Woods, and I urge you to step up the challenges of the 21st century with proven technologies that enable our many residents to live a rewarding life. As prices for fuel, water, and electricity continue to accelerate, you and the village have an opportunity to invest now to reduce future costs for both our staff, fleet, buses, and our personal vehicles. Several cities in Orange County are opting to give their residents an opportunity to buy renewable energy from electrical generating corporations. Would you not want to be part of a wider, forward-thinking, and beneficial trend spreading through our county and state? I urge you to place EV charging devices in the following sufficient to equal what you see in the included photographs at the following location for the convenience of your clean vehicle owning residents: Clubhouse 5, Clubhouse 301, Clubhouse 4, Clubhouse 7, and Clubhouse 2. Sincerely anticipating you will act to promote a cleaner, more efficient, and healthier means of transportation for our residents. And the last email is from Ann Beltran. They stated, I am writing regarding EV chargers and the upcoming report by Bart Mejia to the October 12th meeting. I am asking the full board's encouragement of and advocacy to its fellow members on the M&C committee to respond affirmatively to SoCal Edison's proposed installations of the EV chargers at clubhouses. This board and its M&C committee need to respond in a positive manner to the opportunities presented by SCE to join in their Charge Ready 2 program. In past meetings, I have heard the false comparison that says, just as people leave the village to get gas, so too must EV owners leave the village to get a charge. The correct comparison is actually to the actions of our founder, Ross Cortez, in including laundry rooms in the village. He did not tell residents to go outside laundromats, but provided a helpful solution within the village in the form of laundry rooms. Over time, the decreasing cost of new technology allowed individual residents to opt to install washer and dryer units within their own residence. Residents wanted the latest technology, and they wanted it to be convenient. Similarly, some stake technological improvements will enable residents like me to have individualized solar units with battery storage for my vehicle. But in the interim, we need communal technology installed, technology that services us as all one community, just like the laundry rooms. So in your private conversations or in this public forum, it is time to start getting with the future program and encouraging a meaningful number of community chargers within the village to service the community wave of EVs. My preference would be to see charging ports at 4 clubhouses. Clubhouse 1, where events run at all times of day and at the library and pool are located. Clubhouse 2, which is open to the public, offers golf and a restaurant, and also meeting rooms and a pool for residents. Clubhouse 4, where members can pursue their arts and crafts throughout the day as well as enjoy the pool. And Clubhouse 5, where substantial events drawing hundreds are hosted, as well as provide meeting rooms and a pool. These EV charging enhancements would demonstrate the residents and potential new owners that we are a community looking to meet their present and future needs. Thank you. And that is all from the residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any responses from the board on any of these remarks? Okay, Jim?
Yes, Madam Chair. I've actually got remarks on 2 subjects here. One, and thank you for your comment, Mr. Beckett. I think one of the things that we needed to realize that this year in our budget, we actually took a reduction based on anticipated surpluses for 2022. It's the first time ever that the analysis had been done by the VMS finance team where they were so confident that we would be able to generate a surplus this year that they actually gave us the surplus before there was a surplus. So when the prior year surplus came up and we were certain of what it was, we decided to table that, put it in the contingency, so that it could be provided for next year's budget. So your point is well taken that Civil Code requires us to consider, it doesn't require us to give it back, it requires us to consider returning in some way. So what we chose to do was to return the actual next year as opposed to piling on an anticipated surplus for this year. So we are taking it. We are taking it. It is not lost. And we're cognizant, we're members, we're residents too, we're cognizant of that. The other comment that I have is on the EV chargers. And I think all of us see a lot of EV cars around the area, and many of us would like to have them. And then we say to ourselves, where do we charge them? I'm sure they said the same thing 100 years ago when there were no gas stations around. But the market took care of that, put a gas station on every corner. We don't know where the market is going in terms of EV charging. And right now, even today, the government still subsidizes investment into electricity or EV. And the reason it does is because the market's not there yet. If we go out in front of the market, tomorrow there may be an EV charging station in every what we call gas stations today. The other part is if you read through some of the patents that are involved right now, there is a possibility that you'll be able to charge your car as you drive it, just based on some of the technology that's out there. So, and the last thing is the GRF. GRF is responsible for the amenities and services. I think what you're talking about is the responsibility of the mutuals to generate EV charging stations at the home or in carports. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jim about not front-running the market on EV charging stations. However, we are looking at it, and if demand develops, then we will put charging stations at appropriate locations and charge appropriately so that the entire cost of that charging station is funded by the use of the charging stations. It is not an amenity like swimming pools. It's different. So, but we are looking at it, and we're not going to leave people in a lurch in that respect. Thank you.
So the only comments I have on that is I think that there was one request as for the statistics and the data based upon the current EV charges. And Bill Welsh, I think that was. And so I urge you to go to the M&C committee and have them have a staff report based upon the statistics on that EV charger. And my observation as far as these EV chargers, the more I get out, I go to the shopping centers. I can't believe how many EV chargers are being put up today, to service everybody. So I keep saying this over and over again. We could put an EV charger, 1 or 2 to each by each clubhouse, but does that satisfy the need? We have 18,000 people. So does that satisfy the need to put 2 or 3 or 5 up in the community? So that's the thing that you have to think about. And then we tried to research, with Southern California Edison. And their report back was that we had to have 10 in each location. Okay, so where in our clubhouses, in the parking, are we going to put 10 stations each? So there is it's really a complex, and as Egon said, we have staff looking at it all the time and looking at new technology and see what we can do, to always be ready for whatever comes up next in technology. So thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to make a comment here? No? Oh, okay. Oh, I do want to Suzanne Frank. We recognize that we really need lifeguards. So that will never be a subject again that comes to our board. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. And we have raised it. Okay.
The corner, so.
Okay.
On EV chargers, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that GRF is looking actively to put some charging station, if it's possible,
Right.
on the public areas. But that's not the solution for the community if by 2030, in about 8 years from now, we're going to have 75% of the people driving the electric car. So the answer to that is either we have to upgrade our infrastructure to be able to provide electricity to the carports, or the technology changes the way that the EV charging is going to be just like gas station. One of the technology that's being considered is changing the batteries, like going to the gas station, pulling the rack, putting another rack in, and I know that EPA is looking at that, and there are several companies that are working on those. Those are the solution. Without those technologies, a few charging stations around the community is not going to solve a problem. So the other metro really need to look at the issue in a very active way and see if they can come up with other solutions or ways to provide the services to the community. That's the real future. We cannot close our eyes to that, and we have to be serious about it. Also, on the lifeguard, that was, when this board, met at that time and discussed the lifeguard, we said if we only save one life, doesn't matter how much we spend. That's the important part, the safety of our members. And also, I want to thank Chris Collins for everything that you do with the foundation and for our people in the community. Thank you. You're great.
Jim, okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I did not comment on the lifeguard. I think that really was, it is a type of decisions that we constantly have to make here on the board. Cost versus lives, whether it be the future lives or investment in some other things. So it's a constant battle between costs. And so there are some people that say cost, cost, cost. And yes, but there are also times when we have to make investments. And we invested in a lifeguard. And look what it did. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if there's no further comments, we will go on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees and will be enacted by the board by one motion. In the event an item is removed from the consent calendar by members of the board, such item shall be subject to further discussion and action by the board. So the first one is recommendation from the Finance Committee. A, consistent with its statutory obligations, a subcommittee of the board consisting of the treasurer and at least one other board member reviewed and approved preliminary Golden Rain Foundation financials for the month of August 2022. By this vote, ratify that such review be confirmed in this month's board member open session meeting minutes, and B, entertain a motion to approve donation of a drum sander for Clubhouse 4 wood shop. Do we have a motion? Right here. Okay, a second? Thank you. Are there any objections? No objections. The consent calendar is approved. So the next item is the unfinished business. To entertain a motion to approve vehicle replacement policy, and the 28-day notification for member review has been satisfied. So Joan, please read the resolution.
Resolution 90-22-XX, Vehicle Replacement Policy. Whereas on November 21st, 2005, by way of direction from the Maintenance and Construction Committee, a policy was set forth to purchase new vehicles for the Golden Rain Foundation vehicle fleet. And whereas the board recognizes there may be situations where purchasing used vehicles or leasing vehicles may result in long-term cost savings. And whereas revising the policy will allow the Vehicle Maintenance Division to evaluate each class of vehicle to determine if purchasing used vehicles or leasing vehicles will produce long-term cost savings. And whereas the board recognizes the need to establish guidance related to how vehicles are scheduled to be replaced, criteria for purchasing versus leasing, criteria for purchasing used vehicles, and criteria for purchasing hybrid and electric vehicles. Now, therefore, be it resolved, October 4th, 2022, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby approves the vehicle replacement policy as attached to the official minutes of this meeting. And resolved further that Resolution 90-11-55, adopted June 7th, 2011, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move that we approve this resolution for the vehicle replacement policy. Debbie seconds.
Okay. Are there any discussion? Are there any? One. Okay.
No, we've got
We
it.
have a second, now discussion. Are there any objections? So if there are no objections, the vehicle replacement policy is passed without objection. So the next item is to entertain a motion to approve golf fee pricing. Basically, it's the 28-day notice has been satisfied. So please read the resolution.
Resolution 90-22-XX, golf fee pricing. Whereas Resolutions 90-12-132, 90-18-03, 90-12-12, and 90-16-18 established guidelines for shared costs and fees. Certain fees can be imposed upon users of various recreational facilities to control crowding, mitigate overusage, and recover operating costs. And whereas the golf fees administered by the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods Board of Directors adhere to the shared cost guidelines established in Resolution 90-12-132, whereby certain fees can be imposed upon users of various recreation facilities in order to control crowding and minimize overusage and to recover operating costs. And whereas every 2 years, even-numbered years, staff will compare golf revenues earned through fees to expenses incurred. Staff will then propose fee changes, either increase or decrease, to ensure the shared costs stay within a set percentage. And whereas staff recommends the percent of golf expenses to be funded by fees shall equal approximately 70 to 75%, while the percentage of costs to be shared by all residents shall equal approximately 25 to 30%. And whereas the proposed 2023 revenues of $2,771,000 include golf green fee increases listed in the table below. And whereas at the August 11th, 2022 CAC meeting, the committee recommended the proposed schedule of golf fees inclusive of changes to green fees for members and guests with an effective date of January 1st, 2023. And whereas at the August 17th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting, the committee affirmed the CAC recommendation of the proposed schedule of golf fees, inclusive of changes to green fees for members and guests with an effective date of January 1st, 2023. Now, therefore, be it resolved, October 4th, 2022, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts the proposed schedule of golf fees, inclusive of changes to green fees for members and guests, with an effective date of January 1st, 2023, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized to carry out this resolution as written. I move that we approve this resolution for the golf fees. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Jim,
And-
second, thank you.
And I would like to make an amendment to the motion. I would propose that we table or postpone the increase in golfing fees pending a financial analysis using a pricing evaluation technique now being developed for all priced items and fees in the village. I recommend that this motion be sent back to committee pending the completion of that work and its application to golfing services. And I want to emphasize that my recommendation does not suggest that at the end of that evaluation, there will not be any price adjustments. We had already begun the work on price evaluation techniques when the golf price increases were recommended of the committee. I believe that work should be completed prior to making any recommendations on golf fees.
I second that motion.
Reza seconded it. This is to send back to committee.
Okay. Are there any objections? So there are no objections. The golf fees, let me read this right, okay? The golf pricing will be sent back to CAC. The motion is approved. Thank you. The next item. Now I expect some clapping.
There you go. See, we didn't let you down.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The next item is to entertain a motion to approve the transfer of 2021 operating fund surplus to a contingency fund. The 28-day review has been satisfied. So Joan, please read the resolution.
Resolution 90-22-XX. Whereas in accordance with California Civil Code, a common interest development shall not retain significant operating surplus funds that are not needed to defray current operating costs, and whereas the Golden Rain Foundation balance sheet as of December 31st, 2021 reflected an operating surplus from prior year in the amount of $964,180 net of depreciation, and the board desires to return this amount to the members by way of transfer to the contingency fund. Now therefore be it resolved October 4th, 2022, that the board of directors of this corporation hereby authorizes the transfer of $964,180 from accumulated operating surplus to the contingency fund, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move that we accept this resolution to transfer the funds. Debbie seconded. Okay.
Is there any discussion? No objections? So the motion to approve the transfer for the 2021 operating fund surplus contingency fund is passed without objection. So the next item is to entertain a motion to approve the garden center operating rules. And this has been brought to the board, okay, and will require a 28-day review. So motion, you need to read the resolution. Okay. Thank you.
Resolution 90-22-XX, Garden Center Operating Rules. Whereas the board has set policies and operating rules for usage of GRF facilities, and whereas the Recreation and Special Events Department oversees the use of facilities, and whereas the department is responsible for ensuring that safety and compliance procedures are followed, protect facilities, and enforce policy and operating rules, and whereas the proposed amendments to approve the understandability of the policies and procedures and facilitates implementation by staff, and whereas on September 8th, 2022, the Community Activities Committee approved the amended Garden Center operating rules, and whereas that this resolution supersedes and cancels Resolution 90-16-55 adopted December 6th, 2016. Now therefore be it resolved November 1st, 2022, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts the amended Garden Center operating rules, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized to carry out this resolution as written. I move that we approve this resolution for discussion purposes only and postpone the final vote 28 days per Civil Code 4360.
You have a second?
I do, but I have a comment.
Okay, discussion?
Yes. Allison Gilio, our new director of recreation, has found another Scribner. I don't know if she wants to come up and.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable President Carter and directors. We did find a mistake under section J5. In the first sentence, it references section G2, and that should be section D1, which refers back to signing required release and waiver liability agreement. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Did you record that, Scrivener? Or that?
I have that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, we do have some residents who'd like to speak, if that's okay. Perfect.
Sure.
The first resident is Cash Atrakar.
I think it behooves our board to recognize the donor, not just mention that we were donated money, but by who. It will increase donors that we'll get in the future if we mention. Second point I would like to make, sometime back I had brought into the community a fire alert device which detects smoke and turns off power to the ovens and things of that nature.
Point of order.
Cash, yes, point of order?
Point of order, you're not, this is on the garden center rules?
Only garden center rules?
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
When do I make my comments then?
At the beginning.
At the beginning, in the forum.
What?
In the forum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cash.
Yeah, sorry, it was already passed.
All right, are there any other comments?
Yes, and it's an email from Bill Fisher, or
Okay.
William Fisher, and it's on this item.
Okay.
They stated the Garden Center operating rules went back to the September CAC meeting for clarification and fine-tuning. The September CAC meeting had no clarifications, no discussion about the concerns of the GRF members Reza, Dotson, and Addington. No changes. Paragraph J5 was identified as being written incorrectly. Chair Horton even told staff how to fix it. Staff agreed. Did it get fixed? No, I ignored it instead. Staff presented their work on Addington's amendment of June 9th, which clearly specified a 10-foot limit on plants in paragraph L6. Was this respected? No. For no reason given, staff revised it down to 9-foot plants and more wording giving ridiculous results. I informed Catherine Laster 10 days ago about these errors and more. Let's break this down. What is staff doing? Tampering with your approved documents, providing an abundance of oversights and errors, where CAC/GRF leadership routinely pushes this package forward for approval, no matter what problems are identified. Please do something about this misconduct and correct the rules. Bill Fisher. And that is
There
all
any-
from residents.
Okay, and that's it?
Yes, that is all.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay.
I'm all for the rules and regulation in order.
Microphone.
It's on.
Sorry.
To protect the safety and serenity of our activities. But at the same time, the rules and regulations should be user-friendly and not cause problems and discourse. So when we review these new rules and regulations, regardless of the garden center or any other one, we should have those in mind, those issues in mind, that it has to be user-friendly. We are not, a judge and jury here. We are trying to help our members to have fun and to spend their time. And for that, the rules and regulation is all for them, not, imposing a hardship or anything on members. So when we review this for 28 days, let's have that in mind, that is it a user-friendly on any of the new procedure and regulation that we put in place. I just want to remind everyone, let's just look at it that way and make sure that we have members in mind, not just, putting a blind on and just go forward. Thank you.
So, Jim?
Yeah, just a question. Are you suggesting that they are not user-friendly?
When you review it, you will look at it, and that's what I said. When you review any of these things that we put in place, that should have the members in mind, rather just saying that we're going to impose that regardless of the consequences. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into debate, but I'm interested in what you said, because your suggestion is that it is not user-friendly in spots. And so I would ask you to, since we're talking about a motion that's on the table, I would ask you to be more specific.
I don't have to,
this
because
particular motion.
I'm just saying that any rules and regulation in place should have the members in mind, and it should be user-friendly. They have 28 days to review something, so have that in mind. That's all I'm saying. I'm not putting my finger on anything. I'm just saying, please, that have in mind, so the new rules and regulation doesn't cause any further problem or issue with any members. It doesn't matter if it's garden center or golf or anything else.
Okay.
That's in general the statement I'm making.
Okay, so did you have something to say, Yvonne?
Well, it's my opinion that these rules are user-friendly. I have a Scribner on J5. We can correct that easily. And this isn't a debate now, remember that.
That's fine.
Okay? And we've gone on and on about this. And as for Mr. Fisher, apparently yes is not good enough for him. We have made all the changes that he wanted in these rules. I don't know what else we can do. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you clarify, Michaela? Did he mention me in his email at the very beginning? Was that my name?
Yes, I believe he did.
I wasn't even at your meeting on September 4th. He's talking about our meeting on September? Because I wasn't at the last CAC meeting, so he's mistaken. And my other comment is that nobody likes rules. And rules are meant for safety and security purposes in any environment, garden center, golf, whatever it is. There's never going to be a time in the history of a HOA board that you will make 100% of the people happy. And we've talked about these rules for months and months and months, right, Yvonne? And we feel that these are fair and just rules. We're on a 28-day notification, and we will vote on this, but, it's been hashed and rehashed 1,000 times. Thank you.
So, Diane?
Well, I just want to say, I'm on the CAC committee, and it has been gone over numerous times. Corrections have been made. It seems fair. I'm a garden. I have a plot, and so, if as Reza says, if there's something that somebody doesn't like, let us know. But, I think people have come to a consensus that it's done. But thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? You don't want to hear any comments from me on this. Because we have gone over this over and over, and we bent over backwards, and staff is bent over backwards to try to come to what Reza says, a friendly set of rules. So I want to ask the board, are we ready to vote on this? Yes. With the changes, with the correction? Yes.
It's 28 days.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. We'll vote on it to go on a 28-day review. Okay. So we're at a point we need to vote. Are there any objections to the corrected amendment to the rules?
Move to 28 days.
Yes, and it'll move to 28 days. If there are no objections, then at this point in time, the rules for the garden center is passed to go on the 28-day review. So thank you. All right, the next item is, we don't have any new business, and so I have to ask the board, do they want to take a 5-minute break? Yes. You do? Okay. So we'll take a 5-minute break. It's, so 10:30. Yeah. Huh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if we can go to the first slide. Thank you. This first chart includes all revenues and expenses, and it includes the those designated for reserves, including investment income, the trust facility fees, and the GRF reserve portion of the HOA fees. It also includes the contingency portion of our HOA fees. So looking at the chart, through the reporting period of ending August 31st, 2022, GRF had a net revenue of $2,946,000 with a total revenue of $32,079,000. It also had a total expense of $29,133,000. GRF was better than budget by $1,430,000 with a total expense coming in at $1,952,000. The favorable results seen in expenses were partially offset by lower revenues of $522,000. Those revenues are significantly impacted by the unrealized investment losses for the year. Slide 2, please. Thank you. The next chart displays the operating fund, which excludes the non-operating revenues I mentioned before. It also does not include depreciation. This report shows a favorable variance of $1,813,000 through the reporting period, with an expense better than budget by $1,949,000, offset by revenue, which is worse than budget. All right, and that revenue is driven mostly by broadband. We'll see that a little bit later. Slide 3. Slide 3 reflects the current market value of the GRF discretionary investment portfolio and the original market value at the time of its inception. Year to date, the market value has decreased by $1,120,000, or 5.7%, or $621,000, or 3.3% since its inception. Pardon me, I probably need to take a drink. Wow. Any way to turn this thing down? It picks up everything. Okay, let me repeat that slide because I think I messed up the conversation there. It reflects the current market value of the GRF discretionary investment portfolio and the original market value at the time of its inception. On a year-to-date basis, the market value has decreased by $1,120,000, or 5.7%. It has also decreased 3.3% since its inception in 2019. Next slide, please. In slide 1, I mentioned the impact of the current year's unrealized investment losses. The current market value of the GRF portfolio is $18,410,000, compared to the value at inception of $19,031,000. Year to date, the market value has decreased by $1,120,000, or 5.7%. In August, the value decreased again by $345,000. Our investment advisor still recommends no change in our strategic investment. We've had this investment, just to go back in history, there was an investment committee made up of all three mutuals, including GRF representation, and they recommended this investment portfolio. The first year of its existence, this portfolio gained $720,000. Since then, it's been to some degree on a downward spiral because of the economy, but it's also starting to yo-yo month to month as we look at the valuation of the portfolio. So one of the reasons that and we did have, in August, we had a complete evaluation from our investment advisor, who basically recommended that we ride it out, okay, especially if we didn't need the cash at this moment. So when you look at the portfolio, as well as our, quote, cash and non-discretionary investments, our non-discretionary investments are essentially T-bills, which is essentially cash. They're available within 60, 90 days if necessary. So in essence, what we have is $15 million in cash. So we're not looking at digging into our investment portfolio for any of the foreseeable needs that we have, including some of the initiatives we have for capital spending. Again, this is for capital for capital spending or reserve spending. Now, let's look back at the operating fund. Next chart, please. Okay. Which the operating fund, which has a much more significant impact on our HOA assessments. This slide shows that our most significant operating variances by category, with the green bars representing favorable variances and the orange bars representing unfavorable variances. First, let's just look at our employee compensation. It has a positive variance of $1,476,000, and is currently 91% of the budgeted amount. And they're basically due to vacancies in the general services and security services, along with some vacancies in recreational and maintenance. It's essentially at 91% of the budget. It is part of, when we talked about the surplus, it's part of the anticipated surplus that we have essentially moved to next year's budget planning. On outside services is another positive variance. Is due to delayed start in our janitorial services because some of the clubhouses didn't open as soon as we expected. The next chart shows that our green fees, the revenue from greens fees, are higher due to more use of our golf facilities. Golf gained a lot of popularity during the pandemic, and the demand remained strong through 2022. Our next, we're not finished with the, we moved too fast, move back. Or maybe I'm talking too slowly. Merchandise sales, okay, is another area. Again, that's increased primarily due to golf clubs and other items at the pro shop. So these are all positive steps, positive variances that we see as a result of some savings, as well as some increase in usage in terms of the golf area. When we look at unfavorable variances, and we only have two, broadband revenue is down. Part of it is the advertising, and part of it is we had expected a higher revenues from the internet portion of our broadband amenity based on contract negotiations, and those negotiations have not been as successful as we had hoped. Still ongoing. And then the next is the utilities, $231,000 negative variance, and that's because we're using a lot more water than we had anticipated. We had anticipated, we have essentially a drought. We anticipated using 74% less, we have had 74% less rainfall than anticipated. The other portion of that is our telephone expenses are lower. However, our electricity and gas costs are higher and rising. Now, slide 6. This slide shows the sources of revenue other than assessments, such as fees and rentals. To date, we have received just over $6,595,000 of non-assessment revenue. By category, we see that our largest revenue by far, with 53%, is broadband. Okay? And that's followed by golf revenue, and then other revenue areas, like and then merchandise sales, primarily from the Golf Pro Shop. There's a ton of miscellaneous revenue or other revenue. It makes up about 25 or 30 different items, including clubhouse rentals, not including clubhouse rentals and event fees. Slide 7, please. This chart shows our largest operating expense is compensation, as we would expect, and that's followed by cable programming expenses. Of the $25.6 million, which excludes depreciation, these two categories account for 71% of our total operating expense. Utilities, fuel, insurance, professional, legal, and outside services make up the remaining 29%. I'm going to repeat that. So you take the compensation and programming fees, it makes up 71% of our total expense. If you consider that the cable and programming expenses are offset by the revenue, our compensation accounts for 67% of the net expense, while insurance, utilities, and outside services account for 33% of the net operating expense. Slide 8, please. The reserve and restricted funds, their adjusted balances are shown here. And starting with the first column on the left, reserve funds have a combined ending balance of $34.4 million, and restricted funds have a balance of $2.7 million. Included in this are total contributions received this year through assessments, trust facility fees, and investment earnings. Of course, investments are negative. The second column shows a work in process of $2.7 million for reserves and $83,000 for restricted, reflecting the amounts paid for projects not completed. I just want to add, too, that our work in process, there are quite a few projects that are incomplete at the moment, and this work in process is probably one of the lowest work in processes that we've had in recent years. And not quite sure all the reasons why, but it's something we got to continue to look into. If I looked at the project list, there are lots of projects that were started and approved in 2016, 17, 18, and 19 that are still either no money has been spent on or work in process. And so we've got to really take a hard look at what's driving, when we authorize a budget for something, what's driving the fact that we can't get it done. This is where it's reflected. We don't see it in the operating costs. We don't see it anywhere else. It's reflected here when we look at the work in process. We've got roughly 12, 13 million projects that have been approved over the years that have not been completed, and in some cases not started on. So we really got to take a hard look at that as a board. Let me get off my horse here. So next chart, please. This chart shows that our the resale history, and as we can see, we are considerably above the 2020 level. We were deep in the pandemic at that point. However, we're slightly above 2021, and that gap has been closing over the last few months. Actually, since March, that gap has been closing to the point where 2021 and 2022 are essentially the same. It's an indication of the economy in general, and it's what's with the rise in interest rates and all the other things that are going on outside that we have no control over. But it's a reminder that we're, even though we're insular, we're basically subject to the whims or ups and downs of of the outside of these gates. Slide 10, please. Now, this slide gives you an idea of where the reserve money is committed. All right? Of the $15.5 million appropriated by the board for various projects and equipment purchases, the remaining encumbrance against our reserve fund is $12 million, primarily for renovation projects. Again, this points out what I talked about in the work in process. All right? When you looked at the projects that are there, that we still have yet to move on. As I look at it, I only see two projects here: broadband services and some of the facilities, and of course that compiles a lot. But we'll probably look at this in closed session as to what's causing this and how we can start to move forward. But this does reflect that there's some work to be done here. All right. Slide 11, please. So now when we look at our adjusted fund balances, as we can see, we've been going up in our balance to the point where we're now averaging well over $25 million over the last 5 years. We're now currently at roughly $32 million, with a great deal of that in cash. So that concludes my my report. Any questions?
There's a resident who asked a question on Zoom. It's
Okay.
Judith Trapman, and she said, does the telephone expense on page 5 include the cell phones and phone packages for key employees, and can that be separated out?
I didn't get the question.
Telephone cell for employees, does that include money for cell packages for employees?
Does what include?
Telephone expense.
Yeah, I'm sure the expenses include all of the items for that employees use. I'm not sure where the question, but it is, yes. I mean, it includes all of our expenses.
She wanted them to know if they could be separated out. That was the question.
I think we should take that offline. I'm not sure that's a personnel issue, or, I mean, obviously there's an expenditure there, and BMS has made a decision that's to the benefit of the community, that certain people have use of a cell phone so that they can be reached. I know when I started using cell phones, I was happy to start using the cell phones until I started getting calls at 11 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, I think we'll take that offline in terms of whether or not we can share that data.
Thank you. So you've completed your financial committee report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is the Strategic Planning Committee. Director Dobson.
Yes. We finally had our meeting, long awaited, yesterday. We had a very productive meeting. There's a lot of work to be done. What I had done is sent out a survey to my committee members, and I got 6 of 8 back. And we went over yesterday fully all the information that was gleaned and aggregated. And the result was a couple of things. The top considerations that were brought to light were that, the use of, the looking at cost sharing, as it relates to the use of facilities and share amenities, and these were the top concerns. The use of green space more effectively, how to use our facilities to potentially generate income, but remain within our not-for-profit status. And then technology was a big one, which is one of my favorites, the ease of use for residents and how technology will impact that. The other thing that was brought up was the consideration of, I don't want to say space planning because that's not the right word, space utilization of the amenities, the clubhouses. And we are going to be looking at data over census data, utilization of the facilities over the next, till we have our next meeting, which is to be determined. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we're planning for the future. For 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years from now, what are the needs of this community as it relates to GRF amenities? And that's it.
Thank you. So the next item is the report for the Community Activity Committee. Director Horton.
Thank you. The last CAC meeting, it was reported that our staff levels have improved with 9 new employees and 5 more in process. The volunteer program at Garden Center number 2 is a success with 16 volunteers. And a class in worm farming is scheduled for October 14th. The poolside delivery service from Clubhouse 19 has begun, but it's a bit slow to Pool 2. And one of the other things is that the volunteers at the library reported 3,952 items are in circulation, which is the largest increase over previous months. And to Susan Frank's comment earlier about the pool, Premier Aquatics, our lifeguard service, reported last month 42 first aids, 13 water rescues, and 1 major incident. While at the PAC, Queen, Nations, and David Bowie shows were both success with 700 and 400 attendees, respectively. And that ends my report. And my next meeting for the CAC committee is October 13th, 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next report is the Landscape Committee. Director Skillman.
Thank you, Madam President. Landscape Committee met on September 14th for our quarterly meeting, and we had 3 main topics that we went over. First of all, we got an update from our department head on the irrigation control project, which is a big ticket item, $2.5 million. So they're starting on that. They're still waiting for some of the controllers to be delivered. This will be an 18-month project to get it finished, but it's really going to help us during the drought period that we have in controlling the water and irrigation that we have within the community. Next, the Creek had a presentation. We always have a large group concerned about the creek. And Joanna Kipper, the biologist who works with the landscape services to preserve Aliso Creek, gave a wonderful slideshow with pictures showing what the first go-round has. We're going to have 2 more this year of cleaning up the creek and working to try to get more of a water flow through there. Took questions, and it was very informational report that I think went over very well with the Creek people that were there. Then we also had a slide presentation on drought-tolerant plants. We are always telling people that we want to have more drought-tolerant plants. We want to use our water wisely, etc. Well, we have a lot in the nursery, and we had a slide presentation with pictures showing the various plants and that we could have. So it's a lot more than cactus. And so that worked very well. Our next meeting will be December 14th, 1:30 p.m., and everybody's invited.
Thank you. So the next report is Maintenance and Construction Committee. Director Garth Hoffner.
Okay, we did not have a meeting in September. We did have a workshop where we discussed items of interest to the committee. Our next meeting is October 12th. That's next Wednesday at 9:30, and it'll be here in the boardroom. And then moving on to the ad hoc committee, Clubhouse ad hoc committee. We also did not have a meeting. We were finalizing all of our paperwork with our design consultant, and we're going to make a visit to that office on October the 19th. Their warehouse, or their new warehouse, I should say, is in Anaheim, and it's about a 20-minute drive or something like that. And appropriate members of the committee are invited. Thank you.
And what is that date?
October the 19th.
October 19th?
I have the hour on the top of my head,
Okay.
but I'll send you an email if you like. Thank you.
Okay, that would be great, because I'd love to go. All right. Okay, so the next item is the report of media and communications, Director Millman.
Thank you. Microphone. Thank you, President Carpenter. Media and Communications met Monday, September 19th at 1:30 p.m. And we had reports from Media and Communications, Broadband, and Broadband. Media and Communications report talked about the docent tours going great, and the fact that they're still training docents, and so the Saturday tours are not quite up to speed yet, but we will be getting them as soon as more docents are trained, because the Saturday tours are quite different from the regular tours. The Broadband Ad Hoc Committee report was given by Ms. Paulin. The Broadband Committee, Ad Hoc Committee is meeting regularly now, and we included recently a tour of the head end facility, and followed by a big industry orientation. So we had to learn all kinds of terms, technological terms, in preparation for our transfer from cable to streaming and other events. This report is all researched, is being researched as to how the village is going to transfer from cable to streaming. The VMS communications focus groups that Ms. Pullen has been heading up are reported. They've had 4 focus groups so far that took place Thursday and Friday of September's 15th and 16th. It's on how residents get their information and what platforms they use. So there'll be 2 more focus groups, which we have already met, on Monday, October 3rd. And hopefully we'll have a report from all those focus groups at the all boards meeting training on November 18th. The website ad hoc committee is in full swing. Ms. Rothrock discussed the fact that there are 9 vendor candidates right now to work on the website, and the next step will be to send out an RFP to the top choice and 2 runners-up. The committee is reviewing the wireframing before the next meeting on October 17th. Question was asked as whether the website would go down before the new website goes live, and Ms. Pullen stated that the new website would live on a development site before it is ready to go live, so we won't lose contact during that time. Mr. Ortiz reported on broadband services. At this meeting, we had a cable network operation for the second quarter report, so the financial reports this time on the cable operations. And then we also reported on programming contracts that would expire, and programming contracts the contracts are being forecast. He reported on the broadband subscriber count continues to go down as people stream more, and so these are all foretelling the future for all of us. So our next, that concludes my report. Our next meeting is October 17th at 1:30 here in the boardroom and on Zoom.
Thank you. So the next report is the Mobility and Vehicles Committee, Director Tidbits, and then I would wish that he would also report on the Security and Community Access Committee.
In mobility, we had no meeting last month. Our next meeting will be tomorrow at 1:30 in this room. And in security and community access, we had no meeting since our last board meeting. And our next security meeting will be October 31st at 1:30. That's all.
Thank you. The next one is traffic. Would you be able to report on that, Debbie?
So first, I want to apologize to Elsie because I'm her alternate, but there was some confusion, partially mine, partially staff, and I did not attend, but I do have the report. There were 3 failures to stop, and they were all found guilty. And there were 7 other hearings, but those were storage in a car, registration expired, and whatnot. And there was a variety of outcomes with that. So their next meeting is October 19th at 9 a.m. And it is a hybrid meeting. I did notice from their meeting minutes that they had talked about having meetings in person only, which I am opposed to. But I am an alternate, so I will discuss that when Elsie returns. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next report is the Information Technology Advisory Committee, Director Hopkins.
Yeah, we're.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, I'm so sorry. Disaster Preparedness Task Force Director Skillman.
Thank you. The Disaster Preparedness Task Force met on September 27th, and our next meeting is November 29th. Now, in between that, October 20th is the California Great Shakeout, of which we participate. So we discussed that in detail, how we were going to participate, what we were going to do. And there will be more things coming out from media communications and on our various things about how people can be aware at 10 o'clock on that date of the shakeout. And there'll, of course, be a bunch on TV, et cetera. We also had a Clubhouse coordinators meeting. And we are trying to get them started so that we can branch from there out to more of the good neighbor captains. Now, the big thing that we're really looking at here is we are going to the club, which is a national program rather than just our disaster preparedness. One of the problems that we have is people don't know who or what they're doing. We have good neighbor captains, we have building captains, we have block captains, we have floor captains. There's a whole different variety of people that participate in this. And we're hoping with the new program that we'll be able to make that a little bit clearer. So it was an excellent meeting, and our next one, is November 29th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. So Director Hopkins, the ITAC Committee.
Okay. Yeah, we're moving right along. So far, there have been over 80 meetings between staff and our vendor in terms of understanding what's being done today, what the needs are, basically setting up what's required when they start to actually get into development and design. So it's an ongoing project. As we said, it's going to take somewhere close to a year and a half or so, or 2, to complete. But we're looking at trying to be paperless and having everything just go just as smooth as possible, and benefit by the efficiencies of the new systems. And it's not just new systems; it's process. It's more than that. So that's what we're doing. It's a lot of work, and we're thankful for having Chuck and his team right along with us, as well as the staff at VMS, who are actively participating in the 80-some meetings, because they know it's to their benefit, but I know it takes a lot of time out of their day-to-day activities. Thank you again.
Thank you. So the Insurance Ad Hoc Committee, this is on hold. And I am, we've had a couple meetings, and what we did was we had presentations in regards to captives. And what captives are it's basically owning your own insurance company, but it's managed by brokers. And through the analysis, we found that that does not fit for our community. Now, I've asked what the next steps are, and basically Dan, has basically said, well, if we can get someone to talk to us in regards to actually owning our own insurance company. But we have not found anyone that's able to even speak to us or give us that guidance yet. But we're going to leave the insurance ad hoc committee intact at staff's request. And then as soon as we come up with more information or ideas that we can review as far as alternatives, then the committee will meet again. And the same with the purchasing ad hoc committee. The only reason it's on hold is because we have to get to a certain point with the ERP system so that we know that the purchasing policy is following along with that system. We are almost at that point because, like Jim says, we're just getting into reviewing the design stage. And at that point, then the purchasing procurement section we'll be able to look at what the policies will be and how we will be able to amend the policy that we have. So that's all I have on that. And so the next item would be the
Madam
future agenda items.
Madam
And-
Chair?
Yes?
Over here.
Okay, all right.
I just think it would be a benefit to our members who are watching, our residents who are watching, to let them know that our insurance for the coming year has all been taken care of. It has been bound, we have it.
Right.
The insurance committee is not looking to change anything right now, but we are insured in all categories for the coming year.
Well, we are, and I can add this to that, is that it was found that it was more advantageous to GRF to have their own policy. It was more cost effective. And so staff is continually looking for ways that we can benefit financially with our insurance coverage. So thank you. So next would be future items. We have the Garden Center rules, which is 28-day review. And so we'll go around to the board on any kind of director comments. So we'll start with Reza.
No comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Juanita?
I'd just like to point out that it's 11:12, and congratulate you on a marvelous meeting for this morning.
Thank you. All right, Yvonne.
No comment. Good meeting.
Thank you. All right. Jim?
No, I've commented enough.
Debbie?
No, I just want to say that to anybody who's listening and watching, that we take our fiduciary responsibilities very, very seriously here. And we are constantly working on all the things that we have ability to do and our backgrounds to make this a better place. And safety, security, quality of life, all of those things are always right here. We're residents just like you. Thank you.
Thank you. Egon?
No comments.
Okay. I'll go on, Joan.
Very efficient meeting, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Gan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
We are all trying to do as best as we can. Sometimes we just cannot do what we want to do, but still, we should try. And to the best of our knowledge, for the best interest of all the residents. That's my goal, and I think That's all.
Thank you.
I have no comment.
Okay. All right, then we will resume. We will, recess. We're going to recess, and we will be having our lunch, and then the closed meeting is in the Willow Room. So, thank you very much.
President Carpenter, what time would you like to start the closed session? It's currently 11:14.
Yeah, so 12 o'clock, right? I don't even know if our food's up there because of the, I'm gonna say 12:15. 12:15, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.